Welcome back. You're still watching the Daily Debate, and I'm honored to be having with me over the program for tonight Dr. Ahmed ELLEISSY Nassef, the International Strategic Management Consultant and a writer. Thank you very much for being with us.
You're most welcome.
Doctor. Of course, we did see the visit conducted by His Excellency President Abdel Fattah Sisi over the past couple of days to Denmark, and for today the arrival into Norway in Oslo, and we will be anticipating the participation and the visit to Ireland later on in the week. How do you see the significance and the importance of this three-legged tour to Europe?
Well, I think the President Sisi, I give it to you, or I'll answer your question basically from a business or management perspective. President Sisi is applying one of the most recent theories in management. Actually, it's called the Blue Ocean theory, or the Blue Ocean strategy, which basically revolves around exploring new horizons. Okay, if we count, and there is nothing wrong with that, if we count the visits that Egyptian presidents did to France or to Italy or to Spain or to England the past 2 decades, you will find them probably in the tens, if not close to the hundreds.
Yes.
President Sisi is breaking new grounds. Okay, he's going to areas where nobody, or the last visit was almost 100 years ago. Can you imagine that? 1922, if I'm...
this is the first visit.
Yeah, so practically you're opening a new horizon. What does this mean for Egypt? It means several things. First of all, these countries are very, very wealthy countries. If you look at the population, actually it's interesting thing to note. Denmark has a GDP actually lower than the Egyptian GDP, okay, by about 20%. But because of the huge differential in the population of the countries, the two countries, you'll find that the per capita GDP is so much higher. So there is a lot of wealth that we can benefit in several directions. Well, to start with, we can be a market for tourism for these countries, and these again are wealthy countries that probably will have not just your typical backpacker or the sort of tourist that will want to have a tent in the middle of the desert, but well-spending tourist. So it will help open a new market for tourism in Egypt. Also, these countries are all Scandinavian countries, are very interested and very focused on the environment, the green energy and what have you. And again, that's a new market for Egypt. So I think the President Sisi is doing a very smart move to go to these new areas. To us, these are very old countries, by the way. They're like they have from the Vikings and centuries old. But for us, we had subtle relationships. That opens up a lot of opportunities, especially on the economic front, which Egypt needs most. Again, these countries have a character in their demography, which is almost the opposite of Egypt. They have negative growth mostly, and or at least very, very minimal growth, just hardly actually managing to maintain their population size. So very little growth. We can provide support in that area. So from one angle, we can benefit from what I have you in terms for them as interest of tourism, of new and green field, and at the same time create new opportunities overseas for Egyptian youth. So I think it's a very, very good idea, almost out of the box, to start build in what we call in management the Blue Ocean strategy, and you spread your net much wider to cover a much larger number of countries, and countries that we traditionally were not very close to.
Doctor, you mentioned this important strategy and the significance of it laid out and conducted by His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. One major stop is to be going to Denmark on the economic and the commercial levels. But on the diplomatic and the political levels, how do you see the importance of having the same strategy, to be breaking new grounds, to be going to newer places, and of course in the point of view of Egypt, not in the point of view of history? So how do you see the importance of establishing diplomatic relations, going on a visit to Denmark, for example, regaining the Egyptian status as one of the leading countries in Africa, for example, the foreign file in general under the tenure of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi over the past 10 or 11 years? How would you evaluate it?
Again, the same concept. We are spreading our wings. We are bringing a new perspective to explain our position. I mean, what's going on in Gaza, the situation in Libya, the situation in Sudan, the situation of Ethiopia and the unilateral actions that are taken that could affect and put at risk the Egyptian water resources. I think it's very important to have such meeting on high level. The head of the state is explaining what is going on. What is differential or a bit of the differences we have from the northern or the Scandinavian countries versus the Mediterranean European countries is that they are a little bit distant physically. The exchange is not like with the French or the Italians or the Greeks. So not necessarily you'll see they don't necessarily have our perspective. When it gets explained direct from the head of the states, I think the point reaches home much easier and much faster. And then later on, whenever we are in an international forum, we can count on the support coming from these countries, which obviously, because we haven't solicited it in the past, we probably either had it or didn't have it. But now we are strengthening the support in all international forums from the Scandinavian countries because of the investment that the President put in this visit.
You've mentioned also the importance of the support that we got from Denmark regarding the Egyptian water security and the water resources, as you mentioned, Doctor, which is one thing and one statement that was highlighted by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi upon visiting Denmark and meeting with the Danish King Frederick X and of course Queen Mary as well, is that it is important to be garnering support regarding the water security of Egypt. How do you see the importance of having this support from the world nations regarding one possible potential problem of the Nile waters?
I think it's of a major importance for a very simple reason. We've been negotiating with our brothers in Ethiopia for 12, 13 years now.
More than a decade.
And we didn't go far, to be honest with you, which is a shame. They tried to introduce the African Union. Nothing much happened as well. So it seems, and I'm not the expert here, but it seems, just for a layman opinion, that the next step will be to take it in some sort of an international forum, whether it be the UN or the Security Council or any other specially made forum for this conflict, which is political at this stage or until now. To do that successfully, it is right to build up support from the usual supporters, but on top bringing in new supporters to your side of the table, if you want, and share with them what's going on, share with them the details, which is not necessarily, and we cannot really count that it will be 100% honestly revealed from the other side, which is such is reality and such is life.
Yes.
So unless you speak up and you present your case, other countries will just not have your point of view. And I think this is the gain that such a visit will also bring to Egypt from the diplomatic point of view, to answer your question.
In the past 2 or 3 years, we have hosted the COP27 here in Sharm el-Sheikh, and in the past month we hosted the World Urban Forum. How do you see the bilateral relations between Egypt and Denmark in this field? Climate change, for example, urbanization, for another example. How do you think the expertise could be exchanged between both countries for the benefit of both peoples?
I think it is definitely a plus. We had the co-op in Sharm el-Sheikh, and we've talked about the issues, and we've talked about the situation, the global situation,
yes.
And that Africa, the whole continent almost, has a contribution to the global warming that does not go over 4 or 5%, yet the whole 45 countries in Africa, yet they need to spend a huge amount of money which simply they do not have on their balance sheets. They cannot afford to spend what is needed to spend. So they have to be helped. This is a humanity problem. This is not a X or Y country problem. So knowing how much the Scandinavians are into nature and environment management and fighting global warming, I think it is definitely a reinforcement to the previous discussion that we had in several forums, and not just at the COP that we had in Egypt, but also there was one in UAE, and I think another one later on, if I'm not mistaken, Azerbaijan, which was not as successful,
yes.
Or as at the expectation level that was expected from this meeting. But it is a continuous, you see, these sort of positions are a journey. It is not a destination. It's not a one-off. It's not something that is done only once and you leave it there. No, you have to keep nourishing it, and you have to keep feeding it and providing new information and giving new perspective. So you need to keep it alive. And then I think you would have succeeded in creating an opinion and creating a global support that not just Egypt, but the whole African continent, and President Sisi is taking the lead in that direction, needs to push that envelope a little bit further.
We have spoken about the foreign file and, of course, the directives of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, as you mentioned, Doctor, to be breaking new grounds, to be exploring what could be happening on the economic, on the commercial, and the diplomatic levels between Egypt and several countries in the world. More recently is Denmark. But how do you see the file of job creation, job opportunities, new investments in the past 10 or 11 years under the tenure of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, and more specifically with Denmark nowadays signing a lot of memoranda of understanding?
You see, I remember one of the lovely courses I took at university is called labor economics. So labor is actually a part of economics. It is not any different from any other supply and demand laws. It follows exactly the same patterns and the same behavior. Very simply, if I could use the term, we have abundance of labor here at all levels, whether manual or educated or advanced. And because, as I mentioned earlier, these countries do have either a shortage or a very stabilized population growth,
yes.
Which means they need human capital to build their business a little bit further. And we can help. We can help. So there is no exchange between two parties in any context unless both sides will win from that. So there is a win-win possible here. We will win by creating more jobs in a very creative way, and they will win by having labor, and by labor here I mean the economic definition of labor, not necessarily manual labor,
yes.
but to enrich their workforce with calibers that also they did not invest, bring it up. So it's a nice exchange. Everybody wins if it's managed properly. And I think also this was one of the very interesting dimensions to His Excellency's visit to Scandinavia.
Denmark has a strategy of the Africa century. They have a new strategy to be focusing diplomatically and economically on Africa. What does this say about the continent that we are living in?
Well, it says that the continent we are living in has a huge potential. Unfortunately, we suffered as a continent, and Egypt is not an exception, maybe less than other countries.
Yes.
But we suffered for decades and decades of colonization. We suffered from the natural resources of the whole continent being depleted. One of the examples that I use quite often, I will not mention both countries, but there is a country in Europe, not Scandinavia, somewhere else, that is sitting on a stock of about 4,000 tons of gold. And they don't have a single gold mine. At the same time, the largest manufacturer of gold in the world, which is in Africa, has a stock of about 24, if I'm not mistaken, tons of gold. 4,000 to 24. This is the largest manufacturer of gold in the world.
Yes.
Okay? So the numbers are very clear. The wealth is being depleted. Now it is time, I think, if we want to put the humanity, the human race hat on, okay, for these countries to pay back part of the wealth that they depleted over the year. And again, I'm not referring to Denmark or Scandinavia in that context, because these countries do not have a colonization history in the African continent, unlike other countries.
On the other hand, as we have established that there is this strategy of Denmark to be having the Africa century, the African century for the upcoming century, how do you see the importance of elevating the bilateral relations between Denmark and the rest of Africa, more specifically with Egypt diplomatically and economically, to the level of a strategic partnership? What does this entail on the ground?
Well, first of all, it's worth mentioning that we do have a precedence in that area. It's worth mentioning that when President Sisi was heading the African Union, we saw the advancements that he made at that point in time. We saw how he brought Russia and the whole of Africa together. We saw the African-Russian summit that he orchestrated. We saw the support that Egypt gave out of its position as the leader of the African community to rescheduling many of the debts on many of the African countries.
Yes.
So I think, again, because we do have a precedence, and if we did it before, then we can do it again. So that we can actually help a lot to be a bridge between the two sides, to bring the north of Europe and Africa together in a cooperation, and Egypt can play a role of a catalyst or moderator between the two sides, because we've done it before.
Yes, Doctor, allow me to be going to the other report of the daily debate for tonight, focusing on the statements made by Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati urging the implementation of the Egypt-European Union strategic partnership in the upcoming years. So stay tuned.
Minister of Foreign Affairs Badr Abdulati has underlined the necessity of implementing comprehensive strategic partnership between Egypt and the European Union agreed upon earlier this year. He also highlighted the importance of following developments related to the European financial package provided to Egypt. The minister made the remarks during a meeting with leaders and members of the European Department at the Ministry and the General Secretariat for the coordination of the Egyptian-European Participation Agreement. Abdulati emphasized the importance of supporting bilateral relations with European countries in all fields, especially after raising the relations to the comprehensive strategic partnership level. The Foreign Minister emphasized the importance of holding periodic political consultations with European countries, enhancing economic and trade cooperation, and encouraging European partners to support the Egyptian economy. In this regard, he called for intensifying European investments in Egypt in promising areas such as renewable energy, education, technology, transportation, logistics, and scientific cooperation. The minister underlined the need for encouraging European companies to operate in Egypt, increasing awareness of investment opportunities in various sectors, and enhancing trade exchange between Egypt and European countries. He urged increasing Egyptian exports access to Europe and localizing industry in Egypt. Abdelati also stressed the importance of intensifying communication with the Egyptian communities in European countries and providing consular services to Egyptian citizens residing in Europe. He emphasized the minister's current efforts to develop consular services through digitizing consular transactions. On the sidelines of Egypt-EU summit held in Cairo in March, Egypt and the EU both agreed on elevating the relationship to the level of strategic and comprehensive partnership based on equity and mutual respect and trust. Egypt's President Abdel Fattah Sisi and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen signed the joint declaration on strategic and comprehensive partnership. During the summit, von der Leyen highlighted a financial and investment package of 7.4 billion euros to Egypt over the next 4 years. According to a summary published by the EU, the funding includes 5 billion euros in concessional loans as well as 1.8 billion euros of investments. The funding also includes 600 million euros in grants, including 200 million euros that will be provided to Egypt for the management of migration.
Welcome back. You're still watching the Daily Debate, and I'm honored to be having with me in the studio for tonight Dr. Ahmed ELLEISSY, Nassef, the International Strategic Management Consultant and the writer. Thank you very much once again for being with us tonight. We have seen the statements made by the Foreign Minister Badr Abdelati to be encouraging and the implementation of raising the bilateral ties between Egypt and the European Union to a strategic partnership. How do you see the importance of this partnership in terms of implementing a shared vision regarding the regional and the international conflicts, as we can see nowadays?
There are two sides to it. The first side is the political side, and the second one is the economic side. If we talk about political, unfortunately, during the past 14 months, the period since the 7th of October last year, since the war started on Gaza and then trickled down to Lebanon, and then now it looks like it's going into Syria with risk of further expansions. Unfortunately, during this period, the United States have came very, very clear on their particular position that they are supporting Israel all the way. I mean, this is no secret, and actually, which was an interesting debate during the US elections, whether if the Democrats or the Republicans will win, if this is going to make any difference in that envelope, and reality is not really. Both of them will take that side and will take it all the way. Okay. I think from that it's emerging a need to trying to get a counterweight on the other side. And I think it is very right, especially also we have the geographical proximity with Europe. We are just their back door, if you want, or backyard.
Yes.
So it makes perfect sense that we build and rebuild the relationship with the European countries, especially those who are in the Mediterranean, because these are, you know, they're our neighbors actually. So it makes perfect sense that we push in that direction to try to get a little bit of a counterbalance to the very clear direction that the US is heading in.
Doctor, you mentioned the shared vision between Egypt and countries who recognize the Palestinian rights to be independent and having a state, because in May of 2024 we have seen a foreign ministry statement welcoming the decision by countries like Spain, Norway and Ireland, two countries of the three-legged tour of President Abdel Fattah Sisi, to be recognizing a Palestinian state. Do you think that President Sisi visiting two of those three countries at this particular timing, it has something to do with the Palestinian cause?
I'm sure it does, because again, the Palestinian cause is the source of all the issues that we have in the Middle East. Actually, it is the central and the focal issue of the region.
Yes.
Once if this is solved, I think the region will look very different. I come also from the school that says to protect the Israelians, they need a Palestinian state.
Yes.
It's not just to protect the Palestinians, but also, maybe in the first place, to protect the Israelis. Because the other day I was looking a couple of weeks ago, and you're looking at even the people in Israel. The fear when you see in your skies, these rockets, and that you have to ride to the.
It is a war. It is a war. Yes.
You're going through war. This cannot be healthy for anybody, including the Israelis, or first of all the Israelis. The Palestinians, and maybe this is the point that's not going through. They will not just disappear off Earth, of the face of the Earth. They will continue to be here, generation after generation. They did everything possible, even non-humanly possible, to massacre the maximum number possible of Palestinians.
Yes.
They're still there. They're still there. There will be more generations and more. It will not finish. There is no military solution for this conflict.
Yes.
And it has to be solved in a peaceful way. I mean, it's about time. We've been in this since 1948, so we're talking about 75 years of killing. It's not working. I mean, it's by high time now that somebody recognizes that the military action, the atrocities, the aggression, it's not working. So maybe let's give peace a chance, and this is the way to do it.
Yes, Dr. Ahmed ELLEISSY, Nassef, the International Strategic Management Consultant and the writer. Thank you very much for being with us tonight on the Daily Debate. And of course, this brings us to the end of the Daily Debate for tonight. However, I will be leaving you with the latest report of the program, which focuses on the presidential activities of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah Sisi over the past week, all in the upcoming report. Stay tuned. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.
President Abdel Fattah Sisi met with the Chief Executive Officer of British Petroleum BP, Mr. Murray Auchincloss. President Abdel Fattah Sisi met the Special Advisor to the President of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Mr. Kombo Mondonjobola, and the President's Advisor for Internal Security, Mr. Jack Tshisekedi. On the occasion of the International Day of Persons with Disabilities, President Sisi affirmed that our children with disabilities are a blessing to the nation from Allah the Almighty. President Abdel Fattah Sisi headed to Copenhagen, the capital of the Kingdom of Denmark, at the start of a European tour that would also include the Kingdom of Norway and the Republic of Ireland. The tour is aimed at enhancing cooperation and coordination between Egypt and the European countries. President Abdel Fattah Sisi met His Majesty King Frederick X of Denmark at the beginning of his state visit to the Kingdom of Denmark. President Abdel Fattah Sisi and His Majesty King Frederick X of Denmark inaugurated in Copenhagen the Egyptian-Danish Economic Conference as a part of the President's state visit to the Kingdom of Denmark. President Abdel Fattah Sisi met Mr. Philip Christiani, the Chairman of Copenhagen Infrastructure Partners. President Abdel Fattah Sisi met with Robert Maersk Uggla, the Chairman of the Board of Directors of the A.P. Moller-Maersk Group. President Abdel Fattah Sisi met the Speaker of the Danish Parliament, Mr. Søren Gade Jansen, in the capital Copenhagen as part of his state visit to the Kingdom of Denmark.
President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi met in Copenhagen with the Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen.
وانت ماشي في الطريق او قاعد مع صديق، وانت بره مصر او جوه مصر، وانت في الشغل او في المكتب، جوه البيت او بره البيت، maspiro.eg معاك في كل مكان. بوابة ماسبيرو، اعلام مصر بين ايديك.